This is Lowcountry Money Talk, and if market volatility has you losing sleep, well, we've got you covered, at least in terms of expert advice, because Phil Bloyd is returning with us here, and he's with Revolutionary Financial Group, talking everything money, current events. We're talking food shortages, we're talking inflation, we've talked about the negative GDP. Boy, we've talked about a lot already.
That's heavy lifting. Luckily, I'm a former power lifter, so we just lift it right out.
That comes in handy on the show sometimes, you know.
Right.
But you know, we want to now really bring this home for our viewers so that we can start learning what to do about it. Mm-hmm. And for those of our viewers who are in retirement or soon to enter, it's a conversation that we need to have now about how do we handle this? How do we plan for this? What do we look at when we're dealing with all these variables?
Sure. Well, the first thing I think we need, growing up in a Midwest or Southern state, is a good measuring stick.
Okay.
So our measuring stick right now would be the S&P 500, which a lot of people use as a benchmark to analyze the return on their investable assets. So as we are speaking here today, that index is down about 12% for the year. Okay, so we can take that. The other thing we may consider, a lot of people may like tech stock and this and that. So the NASDAQ index is down 20%. So that's a bear. If we're down 20%, that's a bear market. So the NASDAQ is actually in a bear market.
Right.
So where does your assets fall on our measuring stick?
Right.
So if we're at a negative 12 benchmark,
Okay.
and your growth portfolio is at a negative 8, you're ahead of the benchmark.
I suppose that's a positive thing.
You would think, but some people get heartburn over that.
Yeah.
So, know where you're at on the measuring stick.
Okay.
And, you may be uptight. Some people don't get uptight at all. They're like, oh, it'll work itself out. I mean, just remember you're retired now.
Yeah, there's a scale of maybe how easy you should be about it too. Don't lose any sleep over it, but you don't want to let it slide and get yourself into trouble and be losing money.
Right.
That, leaving it on the table too.
Sure.
So, okay, so what do we actually do? What's the steps that we take to take a look at these things if we want to, call your office and actually, really analyze our portfolio?
The first thing we need to do is do a portfolio analysis, because a lot of people don't know where they fall on that measuring stick.
Right.
So once we do a portfolio analysis, it will tell you, hey, these indices are at this percent and you're here.
Right.
And then it'll also unwrap. So a lot of people may have mutual funds or exchange traded funds or things of this nature. So they may not know what stocks are really driving them down.
Sure.
So this portfolio analysis, Rachel would be the one to contact to get on board with that. And when you call, usually it works for people that have about 500,000 or more investable assets, because we're going to want to input enough in here where we can really get a good measurement on things.
Absolutely.
So once we do that, if you have a lot of mutual funds or ETFs, it's going to otherwise unwrap those and tell us what stocks we have within those funds, and then we can look back and say, okay, well, here's the
your problem.
Here. Yeah.
Here's what's doing well. Let's keep that. Here's what's dragging you down. Well, and it's interesting how few people really take the time to have that full understanding and how much money that could be costing them by not knowing.
The other thing is fees and expenses.
Yeah.
So that will also be exposed in that portfolio analysis. So, we may be down in those, if we're paying an excessive fee, whether it's internal or external, that can pull us down even more.
Right.
So it's important to know. And, when everything's lovely and the sun shines out and the market's way up, people tend to be, I'm not too worried about it. But when things hit the bricks, then they're like, oh, I better check this out, or what do I do, or deer in the headlights, right?
Absolutely.
So that portfolio analysis will help.
You need to know that. The other piece of the puzzle, of course, is risk. And we'll talk a little bit about that after the break. Phil's got some basic tips for us. We have to head to break, but just as a teaser, give us tip number 1 that we'll talk about.
Don't overexpose yourself. You may get sunburn.
We don't know what that means, but that's okay. We've got a whole nother segment to tell you what that means and more tips for you. That's coming up next.